So, Boker Tov, good morning, and we are definitely in the middle of Passover. So, Moadim L'Simcha, a good Yom Tov. Let's start with the mitzvah of giving tzedakah. As you might have, if you pay attention to details, notice that I wrote Sunday morning without coffee because I don't have sort of coffee for Passover set up here in the office. So I did have some coffee already in the house. So hopefully you guys listening, my dear friends here, can have a good cup of coffee. So I'm going to share, one of the thoughts over the holidays that I shared in a sermon in shul, in the synagogue. So, the name Pesach itself, we're talking about Passover. Of course, Passover, Pesach means that Hashem jumped over or skipped over in order to protect the Jews in Egypt, the Israelites, the Hebrews. It also, the word Pesach in Hebrew also is related to the word Pesach, which means the mouth speaks, because Passover, there's a mitzvah to talk, to articulate, to inspire both ourselves and our kindalach. But today I want to discuss something I believe over the years we have discussed in the past, but a little bit of a, sharing two stories. One story I might have shared in the past, which is more a lighter side story, and one is a more serious story, which I just came across yesterday morning. And that is with regards to a name in general. The reason why we discuss the name aspect today is because the Medrash tells us that one of the merits that the Jewish people had for their leaving Egypt was Shaloshinu et Shemam. They did not change their names. As it says in the beginning of Exodus, it says, Ve'ela Shemot B'nai Yisrael, these are the names of the Jewish people, as opposed to saying Ve'elu B'nai Yisrael, these are the children of Israel. It says, and these are the names. And it goes on to tell us Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, etc. So the Medrash comments is that they went down with their Jewish identity, their Jewish names, Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, and they maintained their Jewish names. And it's just even that simple fact of maintaining their Jewish names was a merit for them to leave Egypt, or to perhaps explain it in a somewhat of a deeper way, is the fact that you have a Jewish name affects how you both identify yourself and to others. As someone once said, that if you're in college and somebody who is not Jewish asks you perhaps to date them and so on, and if you say your name is Jack or your name is Jeff, versus saying my name is Moshe or my name is Yaakov, it right away sets up a certain message that I'm Jewish and I will marry Jewish, because that's how God intended it. Those who are Jewish marry Jewish, Gentiles should marry Gentiles, as everybody has their role, their purpose, their mission, etc. So, but that's I want to take it a little bit on a deeper level with a message. First, with a lighter story, and then with a more serious story, as I mentioned, that I just came across yesterday morning. The lighter story is the rabbi gets a call at 3 o'clock in the morning. The rabbi gets a call. And on the other line is Yankel. And Yankel says to the rabbi, Rabbi, you must come over to my home right now. I'm having a major fight with my wife. We need the rabbi to come over and resolve the issue. The rabbi says, 3 o'clock in the morning, it cannot wait until the morning. I got to get out of bed now, 3 o'clock. And he says, yes, this is urgent. It cannot wait until the morning. Okay. Rabbi gets out of bed, gets dressed. Shalom bayit, peace at home, is of utmost importance. The Talmud says that when husband and wife divorce, the Mizbeach, the altar, sheds tears. So we do whatever we can to have harmonious marriage and to help when there's conflict. So the rabbi goes over to the home, comes in, he says, no, what's the issue? What's the emergency? So they say to him the following. They say, we have, Baruch Hashem, thank God, we had a baby boy. No, Mazel Tov, wonderful. So what's the issue? The issue is that the bris is tomorrow morning, and we're having a fight of what we should name the child. The husband says, I want to name my child after my father. My father's name was Yosef. I would like to name my child after my dad. Okay, simple enough. He turns to the wife. He says, no, what's going on? She says, look, my father-in-law was what we call in Yiddish a shyster. I think that's Yiddish. He was a ganev. That's Yiddish, that's Hebrew. He was a no-goodnik. He was a swindler. He was just not a good person. I don't want my child to be named after a person like that. Absolutely not. Rabbi turns to the husband and says, is it true? Is it true that your father was not the model citizen, role model? He says that it's true. It is true. But my father, Yosef, was still my father. And I would like to have my child named after my father. So he turns to the wife and he says, we'll call her Esther. He turns to Esther and he says to Esther, so what would you want to name your child? She says, I want to name him Yosef. So the rabbi is puzzled. You know, your husband wants to name Yosef. You want to name Yosef. So what's the story? So she says, yes, but I want to name my child Yosef after my dad. My dad was also Yosef, but he was a righteous man. He was a pious man. He was a holy man. I want to name him Yosef after my dad. So okay, so this is the issue. The issue is that he wants to name Yosef after his dad. She wants to name Yosef after her dad. And they absolutely cannot resolve the issue over here. They're fighting, they're arguing. The rabbi says, okay, you want to name him Yosef after your dad? You want to name Yosef? Give me a few moments, let me think about it. He goes into a side room, and after a couple of minutes he comes out. He says, I think I have a solution. And they're both eager, hoping the rabbi takes their side. And they say to the rabbi, no, so what have you decided? And the rabbi says, this is my suggestion, that you name the child Yosef. Yosef, which Yosef? My father, my father. He says, this is the story. We'll name the child Yosef. Depending on what you invest in this child and how you raise this child, if the child grows up to be a fine and holy Jew, then we shall call him, then you will know that he was named after Yosef, your father, Esther, your father. If, unfortunately, you don't invest in the proper education of this child, and he grows up to be a swindler, etc., then you will know that he was named after his father, after you, Yosef, after you, Yankel's father. So this is a story that is told somewhat on the lighter side, but it has a deeper message. But then I want to share a more serious story, with regards to a name. And I saw the story yesterday morning. I read the story yesterday morning. There's a fellow who shared the story about his father-in-law of blessed memory. There was a Jew, his name was Reb Moshe Greenberg. Moshe Greenberg, this goes back to 1948. 1948, many Russian Jews. In 1948, many Russian Jews were trying to get out of Russia. At that time, under Stalin's iron hand, the entire USSR was one big prison. And many Jews tried getting out of Russia. And at the time, it was very difficult. It was very difficult. So there was Moshe Greenberg and two fellow yeshiva boys. At the time, he was 17 years old. So they were able to arrange through border smugglers, they were able to arrange to be able to cross over the Russian border into Romania. And from there, they could easily reach freedom. There was a lady, her name was Chasha Vyshetsky. I know personally the Vyshetsky family quite well. I'm related to the family. So this woman, Chasha Vyshetsky, was in her 30s at the time. She had some of her own kids. And she was an extremely courageous, loving, dedicated woman. And she treated all the yeshiva boys who were then in yeshiva like her own children. And she told the boys, I'm not going to let you travel on the train to the border by yourself. There's a lot of danger involved, especially just young boys on their own. I will travel with you to the border. Despite the danger, the serious danger of taking that journey and leaving her own husband and children behind, her husband encouraged her, and she traveled with the boys to the border, made sure they were safe, actually got them some heavy coats on the black market, and traveled with them to the border. At the border, she heads back. Unfortunately, Moshe Greenberg and his friends were caught by the authorities, arrested, and sentenced to prison for 20 years. I guess fortunately, or semi-fortunately, when Stalin, Yamach Shemo, died 7.5 years later, in 1953, I believe it was, Moshe Greenberg was released from prison. Eventually made it to Israel and was blessed with a large, I think it was like 16 children. Fast forward many years, and we are now at a chuppah. This chuppah, there is the great-granddaughter of Chasha Vyshetsky marrying the grandchild of Moshe Greenberg. A year later, they have a baby. They name the baby, meaning the Greenberg-Vyshetsky couple, named the baby Moshe. And in the family, there was discussion of who is this Moshe named after. Is he named after the great-grandfather of the child, which was Moshe Greenberg, or the great-great-grandfather of the child, who was the husband of Chasha Vyshetsky, whose name was Moshe Vyshetsky, and himself a very righteous and special individual. And so you never know what of your actions and how that affects, and how, of course, God rewards you in future generations. But the point that I want to bring out with this story and the Talmudic statement, Shelo Shinu et Shemam, that they did not change their name, I want to give a personal, my own thought over here. The simple, a little deeper insight into what we've said in the beginning, or a different insight. Shelo Shinu et Shemam, again, on the most simple level, means Shelo Shinu et Shemam, they did not change their name. They maintained their names, their Jewish names, which was a merit for them to leave Egypt. Or on a deeper level, you could say it was what kept their identity, so that there was a people to leave Egypt. When you start losing your identity, naturally and automatically you start to assimilate, and there's nobody left to leave. So that is, again, on a perhaps deeper level. But I want to give another interpretation over here. And I think it's very important for the times that we live in today. In the sense that we have a challenge to make sure that our children, that both ourselves and our children, with all the exposure and the cultural influences that are very antithetical to Torah, to godly thinking and so on, to Torah, to Jewish values, I want to make this suggestion, Shelo Shinu et Shemam, that they did not change their name, to interpret it as follows. They did not change who they are named after. Shelo Shinu, they did not change from who they are named after. Meaning, if you're named after a grandparent, great-grandparent, there is the reason we are here today and who we are as a Jewish people, or no matter what faith you're in, but especially as Jews who have gone through such persecution, there is no question that we are here today as who we are because our ancestors have sacrificed, have literally put their lives and their comforts and put themselves in danger for us to be here today with all the richness, with all the beauty that that our tradition has. So the Shaloshinu et Shmam I'm suggesting is find out who you're named after. Find out who your child is named after. There's no question that there's an amazing story to their life. If not them, but who they are named after. If not your grandparent, your great-grandparent. And see to it that you are inspired to the extent that you do not change from who you are named after. You use their life as an inspiration, as a guide to how you should live your life. You are here today because of their dedication, their value system, their commitment, their dedication and how to raise the next generation and themselves. So see to it, both for ourselves and for our children especially, if you want to see to it that your children follow and identify and are still part of your people in the next generation or 2 generations, one of the important and great ways to do that is the Jewish name, and to teach them that they should find out who they're named after. So that Shaloshinu et Shmam, that there is no change to their life based on who they are named after. That is my thought for today in learning a little bit more about Passover, which lasts until Thursday night, not to eat any chametz. The last 2 days of Passover, which starts Tuesday night, Wednesday, and Thursday, is the holiday Passover. Now is what we call the intermediate days. There's actually a mitzvah to be joyous during this time. But this is the message for today. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share these words. I hope you had a wonderful Pesach. I hope you had a wonderful first days of Passover and Seder and meaningful with your family and so on. Everybody have a fantastic rest of the week.